friends, it's Miss Christina. Welcome to part 3 of our Easter week series. We've been reading our Bible and using resurrection eggs to help us learn the story of Easter, the story of Jesus leading up to him dying on the cross and coming back to life 3 days later. So far, we've opened 4 of our resurrection eggs. Let's review real quick. Our first egg was the blue egg, and inside we found a donkey to help us remember the story of Jesus riding a donkey into Jerusalem and the people celebrating as they laid their palm fronds and clothing on the road, kind of like a red carpet for Jesus. Our third egg is the light pink egg, where we found 3 silver coins, and this helps us to remember the story of the men paying Judas 30 silver coins to betray Jesus. Our third egg was the light purple egg, where we found the cup. And this cup reminds us of the story of the Last Supper, where Jesus ate dinner with his disciples and told them that the bread would represent his body being broken, and the cup, the wine in the cup, representing the blood poured out on the cross. Our fourth egg was the orange egg, and inside we found praying hands, and this reminds us of the story of Jesus and his disciples in Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus went to the garden so he could pray and talk to God, knowing that he was about to die on the cross. Be sure to remember each of our resurrection eggs and the story that goes along with the item inside each one. These eggs all together will help us to remember the story of Easter. Today, we're going to add 3 new eggs, 3 new stories, and 3 new items within each of those eggs. We're going to look at the green egg, the yellow egg, and the light orange egg. All right, friends, it's time to read our story that goes along with our green egg. Everybody open up your Bibles to Matthew chapter 26. Our story today picks up right where we left off yesterday. Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane with his disciples. Everybody say Matthew chapter 26, verse 47 through 50. Good job, friends. Let's see what it says. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. A large mob with swords and clubs was with him from the chief priests and elders of the people. His betrayer had given them a sign. "The one I kiss, he's the one. Arrest him." So immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. "Friend," Jesus asked him, "why have you come?" Then they came up, took a hold of Jesus, and arrested him. When Jesus finished praying in the garden, the men who wanted to kill him came and took him prisoner, and they took him to the Roman governor Pilate. Now, we have to pause here for a second and go somewhere else in our Bible. I want you to go to the book of John, chapter 19. Did you find it? Everybody say John, chapter 19, verse 1. It says, "Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged." The word flogged is a word that you might have never heard before. Another word for flogged is whipped. The soldiers took a long, hard whip and they hit Jesus with it. It hurt him so much that he bled. These men who wanted to kill Jesus were afraid of losing their power. They knew that if the people believed that Jesus was the Son of God, which he was, that they would follow him. They wanted Jesus to get out of the way. Friends, let's look at our green egg. What do you think could be in this egg that would help us to remember this story? Do you have any guesses? Here's the sound. All right, we know something's in there. What do you think this could be? If we look inside, we see a whip. Can you see that? And so this whip will remind us of the story of Jesus being arrested and Jesus being whipped. Let's read our next story. Remember to listen very carefully to see if you can guess what might be in our yellow egg. Everybody open up your Bibles to Mark chapter 14. Let's jump back for just a second. Do you guys remember reading our story about Jesus having dinner with his disciples? He talked about the bread representing his body and the wine in the cup representing the blood. After Jesus told his disciples about this, they had another conversation where he said, "Before the rooster crows 2 times, one of you disciples will have denied me 3 times." And so after Jesus said this, Peter, one of his disciples, promised Jesus. He said, "No matter what happens, no matter how dangerous it gets, I will always be loyal to you." Okay, let's fast forward and get back to our yellow egg. We know that Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was taken to Pilate and he was whipped. Now, let's look at our Bibles and see what happens to Peter. As we do, I want you to count on one hand how many times the rooster crows, and on the other hand, how many times Peter denies Jesus. Everybody say Mark chapter 14, verse 66 to 72. While Peter was in the courtyard below, one of the high priest's maidservants came. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about." Then he went out to the entryway and the rooster crowed. When the maidservant saw him again, she began telling those standing nearby, "This man is one of them." But again he denied it. After a little while, those standing there said to Peter again, "You certainly are one of them, since you are also a Galilean." Then he started to curse and swear, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately, a rooster crowed a second time, and Peter remembered when Jesus had spoken the words to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will have denied me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. So guys, just as Jesus said, before the rooster crowed twice, Peter would deny Jesus how many times? 3 times, exactly as Jesus said. And so Peter loved Jesus, and he had made that promise to Jesus saying, "No matter what happens, I will be loyal to you." But in the moments when these people were asking him if he knew Jesus, he was scared. And so he denied it 3 times. After hearing our story, what do you think could be in our yellow egg? What would remind us of the fact that Peter denied Jesus 3 times? Let's take a look and see. Inside our yellow egg, we have a rooster. Because remember, Jesus said that Peter would deny him 3 times before the rooster crowed how many times? Twice. So in our yellow egg, we have a rooster to help us remember this story. I have one more egg for us today, the light orange egg. Everybody open up your Bibles to Matthew chapter 27. Let's see if you can guess what's in our light orange egg as we read our story. Everybody say Matthew chapter 27, verse 27 to 31. Let's read and see what happens. The governor's soldiers took Jesus into the governor's residence and gathered the whole company around him. They stripped him and dressed him in a scarlet robe. They twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head and placed a staff in his right hand. And they knelt down before him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews." Do you know what the word mocked means? The word mocked means to make fun of someone. So even though they said, "Hail, King of the Jews," these men did not believe that Jesus was the King of the Jews. They were making fun of him. Then they spat on him, took the staff, and kept hitting him on the head. After they mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, put him in his own clothes, and led him away to crucify him. After the soldiers had whipped Jesus, they took branches with thorns on them and made it into the shape of a crown and put it on Jesus' head. How many of you have ever held maybe a rose that had some thorns on it, or have been walking through the woods and your leg has brushed up against a branch that had some thorns? The soldiers used those types of branches or stems to make this crown of thorn, and when they put it on his head, it hurt him and it made him bleed. Now, The soldiers were not treating Jesus very well. At any point, he could have stopped this because remember, he's the Son of God. But even though he hadn't done anything wrong, Jesus lived a sinless and perfect life. Jesus knew that he was going to take the punishment for all of the wrong things people had ever done and would ever do. And that includes me and you. Our light orange egg, what do you think could be in this egg? Do you have any guesses? Are you getting good at guessing what all of these items could be as you listen to these stories? Let's see what's inside our egg today. Inside of our light orange egg, we have a crown of thorns. Can you see the thorns on this crown? Can you imagine how that would have hurt your head as the soldiers put it on you? Can you imagine how it would have hurt Jesus? We did a lot of reading, a lot of learning, and a lot of guessing today. So let's review to make sure that we remember what was in each of our eggs. In our green egg, we had the whip. And this reminds us of the story of Jesus being whipped after he was arrested. In our yellow egg, we have the rooster. And remember, the rooster reminds us of the story of Peter denying Jesus 3 times. In our last egg, our light orange egg, we have the crown of thorns. And this reminds us of how the soldiers mocked Jesus and put this crown of thorns on his head before he was crucified. We are over halfway through our resurrection eggs and over halfway through our stories leading up to Jesus' death on the cross and resurrection 3 days later. Remember all of our eggs? Tomorrow we'll review, and by the end of this, let's see if we can remember all 12 eggs in order and all of the stories they represent. I'll see you guys later. Bye!